Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Wednesday. We're back. We're continuing the fantasy Livewrite until we're able to actually finish this book, which is not going to be tonight because there's more story that we have to cover here. And a good big final showdown. That'll be part of it. But, we're going to continue on with it. Had to miss... I usually stream twice a week. I had to miss some sick family, all kinds of things coming up. That happens, and it's an interesting thing. One of the things I'm reminded of is something Stephen King said years ago in this book called On Writing. And he basically said that you have to write a book in one season. Kind of whatever... I guess whatever that means to you, right? You got to write a book in one season. And the idea behind it is that your state of mind, where you're at as an artist, as a writer, where you're at in life, that's going to inform the book to a large extent. And so if it's taking multiple seasons, if it's taking a long time to do the book, then eventually you are going to lose your will to complete the story. You're going to become too separated from the story. You are going to second guess the decisions you made. You're going to feel like the book sucks, maybe. So it's important to write the book within a reasonable amount of time. And I think there's a lot of value to that particular advice. And this book, Prince of Twilight, is a good example, which is, I don't feel like the book sucks, but like my enthusiasm for the book has definitely tapered off as I've done this. And it's because I'm only working on it usually once a week, right? Whereas normally if I were writing this, I'd be writing every single day. I'd be putting words on the page every single day. So if I had been doing that, this book would have been finished in like a month. But we've taken, however long, 6 months to do it because I'm literally, it's 6 times as long because I'm only writing once per week. So there's a lot of virtue to that because, your enthusiasm for the project will taper off and you'll start to get disconnected from the things you put in prior years and not know why you did them, or you're a different person a year later. So the feelings that inspired your ideas initially, those have moved on, right? You've moved on as a person. We think of ourselves as having a firm and constant identity, but we exist in the fourth dimension. We're traveling through time and our perspectives change. The way we think changes. The way we feel about things changes. The excitement towards certain kinds of inspiration will change with those times. So it is a really good idea for anybody that's like, how long should it take to write a book? I always advocate writing really consistently because I'm like, you can write several books a year if you're just writing 1,000 words a day or 1,500 words a day, if you can manage that. That's what Stephen King writes kind of in his retirement. He writes 1,500 words a day. That's a lot. And you can be very productive doing that. That will also, if you are forcing yourself to work every day, that'll also give you a really good chance to finish a book in a season. Within a reasonable amount of time, you'll be able to finish writing a book. And then I think it's better, personally, I like to have a little bit of separation from the work when it comes to editing. So I like to come back to it after a little while to edit it. Sometimes I'll edit a book immediately and put it out because I need to get a book out. Other times I'll shelve it and then do something else for a while, then come back and edit it. Just even if it's like I'm putting the book not in a metaphorical drawer. I'm leaving the book on my hard drive and I'm just going to record videos for a couple weeks and I'm just going to write articles for a couple weeks and focus on that. I've done that a few times. Then you come back and edit it. Your eyes are fresh. You're a little bit more separated from the material, which is kind of what you want when you're editing, because you can objectively look at like, what was I doing? Because you may have forgotten what you imagined, and then all you have there are the words to describe what's happening. And so you can evaluate them a lot more objectively. But it's a good idea to finish a book in a season. Now, there are books that I have abandoned and had to come back to later, and always it would have been better if I had just stuck it out and finished the book. And I give that advice in the Keys to Prolific Creativity book. It's advice that I've given on the channel dozens, hundreds of times maybe, is you have to finish what you started as best as you can, right? You got to get it done. Abandoning a project, it's better to have a finished book that sucks than an unfinished book of any kind, right? Because the unfinished book, people worry about, sunk cost fallacies and stuff, right? If you have a complete book, it's really not it might suck, but it can be fixed. A complete book can be repaired, but an incomplete book is always like a loss. So yeah, you need to be able to finish it. And then you come back years later and you're like, what was I thinking? And I need to rewrite this from page one. You start wanting to do really much more extreme overhauls of your work than you would have done if you just wrote it and put it out. And that also intersects with one of the realities about editing that a lot of people don't realize, which is that, revision doesn't always make your work better in the way that it would be as far as how readers receive it. Like, readers are not necessarily going to like your book more because you agonized more over the revision phase. And you don't have to think hard to think of examples of books that people will say are poorly written but are very popular, right? Like a Twilight book or something. Do you think Stephenie Meyer needed to agonize? She probably agonized over her revisions more than you realize, but she knew who her target audience was, and it's often not the people who say that Twilight sucks, right? It's not like middle-aged men. It's teenage girls, So knowing your audience is important there, but are these is this like great prose that you feel like you need to be better than? Are you going to sell more books because your prose, you agonized over the sentences more? No, you're not. Are you going to sell more books because you chose one plot event over another? Or, probably not, right? There's a bunch of intangibles that create success that you're probably not going to be very good at predicting. And all it takes is somebody to really objectively try to nitpick the first Star Wars movie, and you'll realize most of the nitpicks are there, but they don't matter, right? Like, people don't really care that, a parsec is a measurement of distance, not of time. Like, they don't care about that, right? That doesn't matter. That's something that it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And other kinds of things don't determine whether it's going to be like a good or bad movie or how people are going to receive it. So, don't be afraid to publish a book. In other words, like, don't be the person who agonizes over revision for years and years and years on time, years and years on end. It's not gonna create a better product. Same thing with like taking longer and longer and longer to write the book. What most people do is they write the book when they're excited, and then they hear from somebody online or maybe their teachers that they have to revise it like 8 times before it's going to stop sucking. So they start doing that. They second guess everything they did, every sentence they wrote. They change their vision. They had a vision of, maybe the first time they write a fantasy book, it's like Dragons of Autumn's Twilight. It's just a straightforward adventure story, kind of cheesy. Yeah, there's poetry in there, but it's not Tolkien level. And you hear, I really want it to be more like Tolkien stuff. So they completely rewrite it to have a different tone, different characters, and so the next time they rewrite it, it's a different book. You could have just written a new book at that point. So yeah, write it in a season if you can. I'll actually tell you about King Leper a little bit, right? King Leper is a good example of this because of a bunch of events that happened, I had to write this book over the course of several seasons that were disconnected. I'll show it to you real quick. If I look a little red, I'm having some skin issues. I'm like looking at my playback here. It's like, so please forgive my skin not looking great. I could turn on like a black and white filter, I think. That might be a fun idea. But yeah, here, check this out. Yeah. All right, here's the cover. Okay. So King Leper, I started writing it in 2020. Okay, so it's 2025. It's coming out this year. There'll be a crowdfund for some signed hardbacks if that is something that you'll be interested in. That's what you need to pay attention to. There'll be some signed hardbacks coming your way for, I don't know, a reasonable price. I'll make sure they're a pretty reasonable price. Okay. Pretty reasonable price. As I was writing it, I got to this point where I realized the book relied kind of heavily on this backstory. That backstory is Al-Shafalda. It's this book. Here, I'll show it to you real quick. So yeah, here's this book. So the backstory became Al-Shafalda. So I stopped writing it and I wrote this book because I felt like I really wanted to dig into this story, and I wanted it to be, they were watching this opera that's basically telling this story. And some people were like, you should have just written opera libretto. I'm like, that's a really good idea, but I wanted to write in this style. So I stopped and I wrote this book. I didn't release it in 2020. Why didn't I release it in 2020? Well, you guys can guess. 2020 was a giant, I don't know what to call it. You guys were around for 2020, right? After the election, I just felt like I wasn't going to be able to put it out. Like it just wouldn't hit at all. And so I sat on it for like 2 years. Came back to King Leper, wrote it some more. Then I realized like I really it was a long book and I wasn't going to finish it in time. So I paused that and I wrote different books yet again. In order to get something out for people, right? In order to get some things out for people. And then I had an opportunity to write for an anthology. I did that, right? So I had all these things that came up that kind of distracted me from getting the book out. Then I had to finally come back and finish it. And then by the time I finished it, well, more than a year had passed since I had started the book. And so I started thinking about how the book was beginning and progressing, and it kind of occurred in 3 phases. And when you read the book, you'll see that it's divided up into 3 books. There's 3 entire books there, and each of those was written at a different time. So the first book was written in 2020. The second book was written, I think right before I moved out here. And then maybe 2021. And then the third book was written in like 2023. Okay. Then I teased it for a while and I did more work on it. There's still a little bit more work to do on it. That people who've been patrons, let me link my Patreon. I don't have a new free book for this month yet, but I'll put one up. You get a free book every month if you are a patron. So go ahead and link that. Patrons already got this book. So it's already kind of out in the wild, believe it or not. Kind of interesting. And patrons have also gotten several books that you can't get online. They've gotten books that you can't just buy by themselves, at least, or don't exist. They were like Kindle Vela books and things like that. So I'll have more exclusive stuff. I might do an exclusive book for March that hasn't been released yet. It'd be a short book. It's like a sci-fi fantasy kind of thing. So stay tuned for that. I have a bunch of books that I haven't published. Not a bunch, but I have several books I haven't published that I've written. So anyway, it's a really good idea to get this stuff done in a single season if possible. It will just make it much, much easier. It was a struggle to write King Leper simply because I didn't write it in one season. I allowed myself to get distracted. I'm like, this book's going to be really long. I need to put a book out this year. It was 2020, I think. I'm like, I need to get a book out real quick. So I'll write Al-Shafalda and put that out. Then the election happened and I was like, okay, I really don't want to put the book out now. No one's buying books. Everybody has like a completely depressed mood and outlook. And the business was terrible, and the business remained terrible for like 4 years. So eventually I just put the book out anyway. I'm like, yeah, no one's going to buy it. It's okay. Like, it's okay. We'll just put it out. And it's okay that a book exists that people don't buy. It really is. It really is okay. So if you're wanting to know some deeper lore stuff for King Leper, Al-Shafalda is a book that you got to read. Okay. You got to read it. Someone's going to nitpick Empire Strikes Back in the chat. Let's check this out. Okay. Because this is a really good example of like stuff that, you can nitpick that stuff, but it may not matter. Do you know what I mean? Like the audience may not care or perceive it, and taking the time to fix that stuff wouldn't have made people like the movie more. So it would be like a waste. nitpick that or to like worry about that, I guess. I feel the same way about this. Thank God I kept notes because the ideas I had for sequel books is kind of getting lost in my mind. Yeah, it's good to write down sequel ideas. Now, there's a flip side to that that Nassim Taleb talks about, which is it's good to procrastinate because then you forget about more of your ideas than you use. And if you forget them, they probably weren't that good. And so there's a flip side to that. Like there's a virtue to not writing it down, which is that if it was really that good, you'd remember it and you wouldn't need to write it down. Oh, we got an ad. That's wonderful. Let's get that ad. Give me some more Zool music. All of this is true. It's always after 30 to 60 days that I start to get mentally drained by a project. Yep. That's why it's so hard to develop a game because you're in it for years. It feels like, you know? If I do thumbnails and wait too long, I can't decipher my own thumbnails. Yeah. I was just thinking today how Empire Strikes Back has a lot of plot issues that never get talked about and never get talked about because it's the darling child of the OT. I talked about it a little bit with my review, right? The big one is like the time. There's like the time, like the time passage of time doesn't quite line up to what's happening. Luke is over here training with Yoda, but Han and Leia are going through space for like a couple days, right? It just doesn't. But people don't pick that up because they separate those things. Like Luke is over here training and Han and Leia are running away, and they don't really think that these things are kind of happening at the same time. And so the time doesn't quite line up for them. It just doesn't work. You know, there's lots of little things. We basically have some Deus Ex Machina to get Luke over to Vader, right? He has to have, he's stuck doing something with Yoda, and we need to get him over there to get his hand chopped off by Vader. So we basically just have him go for no reason, right? He just like is perceiving that someone's in trouble. We use magic to get him out the door, which we've never really had before. The entire Han Solo plot was stupid because he was supposed to have paid off Jabba in movie 1. There's literally no reason for this to be an issue in ESB. Right, yeah, but he's running away with the money, but he stops to come back and help Luke. And then presumably he was going to go pay off Jabba, but he still hadn't done that. So I think it works. I think it works fine. And most people don't really, like I said, they don't really care. Yeah, there's the ex post facto Luke and Leia. I mean, you can nitpick a lot of things. They reuse the Death Star, but it doesn't matter, right? Those aren't things that would have made people like the movie more if you somehow made them slightly better, right? The whole point was like people are trying to get Han, people are trying to get Leia. There's people trying to get them, and you know, him owing Jabba money is a good reason from the previous movie, and so it's easy to just kind of hold it over, right? There's not really plot holes. There's just like there's a convenient solution. It's not the same as like in Last Jedi where, hey, we can't get away from this pursuit. Let me get away from this pursuit. Let me warp away. I'm just going to hyperspace away from the convoy and no one's going to care. All right, well, that kind of undercuts the entire conflict, doesn't it? You know, versus like Jabba being, it might be easier to pay off Jabba, but that doesn't really undercut the conflict of Han is in bad with the mob. You know what I mean? So I think it works. I think all the Han stuff works. And Empire Strikes Back is good because of the characters. I talked about this. People love it because it's the best character movie of the trilogy. I actually think it's the best character movie of all Star Wars movies. The characters are at their best there, and it is aesthetically also the best in my opinion. So those two things are what makes Empire Strikes Back the best Star Wars movie. Is that the characters, their struggles, their growth, their interactions with each other, the matriculation of the romance, right? Though that's what really, that drama is what makes that movie really good. Plus the sets. The sets and the environments in Empire Strikes Back, they just feel real. They feel so much more rich even than the first movie. They just are like some of the best sci-fi set designs ever made, is Empire Strikes Back. You know, you have the ice planet, and that's not much to think about. It's a bunch of white snow, right? But like the inside of the base and the way all of that works together, it's so well done. It's so well detailed. You have the interior of the Empire ships and the way they look. You have the very somnial Dagobah, a strange little pocket of darkness. And the sweat. It's great. And then you have Cloud City, this beautiful, pristine kind of techno society, kind of in between the broken down rebellion and the hyper technical empire. You have this like future city of beautiful technology that nevertheless has, I mean, the beautiful sets has the problem is that it can't stand up to the Empire, right? You have like the sets kind of point to things, right? The swamp is full of struggles and grossness. It's a perfect setting for training. Desert would also be as well, but we already use desert, so we'll use the swamp. You know, yeah, it's great for that reason. So it has the lightest plot of the original trilogy. What I mean is like the conflict is very weak. There's nothing that the characters really need to solve, and in fact the main protagonist, the guy who's doing the protagging, is actually Darth Vader. It's Darth Vader's conflict of I want to find Luke Skywalker. So I want to not get caught is a conflict, but it's not as strong a conflict as I have to do something to solve the problem. I have to actively, usually I don't want to get caught is just the kind of midpoint of a story, and I think it functions as a midpoint of the trilogy, right? So you have the first movie, the rebellion's kind of on their heels for the second movie, and then the third movie they figure out how to solve the problem. But you know, anyway, it's just kind of the weakest as far as the plot goes. There's not a whole lot of plot event sequence going on. It's Empire attacks Hoth, everybody runs away, and then an hour and a half later, Darth Vader wins. Right? He eventually catches him. So it's just a sequence of them running away and Luke learning some things about the Force before coming back to lose to Vader. Everybody loses. Yeah. I think Return of the Jedi slightly beats out ESB for aesthetics, or maybe at least design. I think Return of the Jedi is incredible as far as set design goes, especially the set of the Death Star is just great. It's really well designed. But and the Forest is great. My only complaint about Return of the Jedi is that it's just much more limited and less dreamlike and less fantastical. We're in a forest, not a weird swamp with bat things, not space. We're not spending that much time in space and asteroids and stuff. So it feels, I mean, it's fine. It looks great. It's a great looking movie. And the sets are beautiful in Return of the Jedi, and the design's beautiful in Return of the Jedi. But we're back again, you know, we're on Tatooine again. We've been on Tatooine. There's like 4 different times you're on Tatooine in the Star Wars. We're in the desert a lot, you know. So we're back on Tatooine for a big portion of the beginning of the movie to get everybody back together. You know, you're on a forest moon. You kind of stop by Dagobah, but that's not really like a big area of a visual detail. So anyway, let's try to write a little bit. Hopefully I haven't forgotten too much, because I had to miss some of these streams, but that's how it goes sometimes, and I'm really sorry for that. Okay. Let me slide over a little bit here so it's a little more comfortable. Yeah, I think the first Star Wars movie is the most complete. So I'm with you on Jared. That was always my favorite growing up. It tells the most complete story. You get to the end and the movie ends, and it's a great place to end a story. Same thing with Return of the Jedi. It ends in a great way. Have you heard about the KCD2 gay controversy? Yes. You can take the character and make him gay. Put a girl in it and make it gay. I don't need to play any game. You know? It's okay to not buy games you don't like. So, you know, the rebut is, well, it's somehow optional. Yeah, you still don't have to buy or play the game. You can not buy the game for any reason you want. So, yeah. The controversy is, what are you going to do with your wallet? Right? People are informing you that there's gay stuff in a game about Christian crusaders. This is what they do, right? It's kind of a humiliation ritual. So, you cannot buy it. Point it out, and then don't buy it. Right? No big deal. Plenty of other good things to play that are not going to have, you know, Christian warriors engaging in sodomy. Right? It's your money. It's your money. This one. What was her name? Charity? Yes. Sorry. Let's see. Got here. Alright, we're at 5,000 words. So this will be the end of this chapter. Perfect. And then we will set up the last battle here. Alfred, 8th already. just find it weird how the same people that usually cry woke suddenly are okay with it and argue that it isn't a woke subversion because of it being optional. They seem to miss the point entirely. Yeah, let me do a game about let's do a game about, you know, Mehmed II, and he has an optional gay scene. You can choose a dialogue for him to have sex with a male. How would people react to that? That'd be pretty messed up, right? If we had you know, Saladin sleeping with men or something, right? Muslims weren't okay with this either. You know? So it's people of the time wouldn't be doing this, right? It's not a fantasy game like Dragon Age where there's gay stuff in it from the beginning, right? And I'm pointing this out about Dragon Age is like, dude, there was gay stuff at the beginning with Dragon Age, and that's neither bad nor good, but like woke is a different level, right? In Dragon Age Origins, you could play a gay character and you can, through many dialogue choices, initiate a gay relationship. You can even have like a four-way sex party at the whorehouse. Right? There's a lot of adult stuff in that. But you get the idea, like you have to willfully do that. It's in a fantasy world and you're also like an outlaw, you know. And it's the first game in the series. It's not full of people from an actual historical time period who have actual religious beliefs and actual preferences and beliefs regarding homosexual relationships and how that would reflect on people. It would be deeply insulting to make something about the Muslim warriors in the Crusades being homosexuals too. I wouldn't do that. I would never do that. I'm not a Muslim and I wouldn't characterize them with that either. Like, what? That would be absurd. It would be absurd and insulting. So it's both of those things. It's absurd on one level and it's insulting on the other. So I wouldn't do it. But the point, why is it? There's always, you know why they do this. They do this because they want to upset people. They do it because we're having this conversation about it, right? They don't do it because people want it. You know, people who are really wanting to like role play gay relationships aren't probably thinking hard about Kingdom Come Deliverance as the way to do that. You know what I mean? I hear it's the same for Mass Effect, especially in the third game. Yeah. I was watching your video where you mentioned we're all prisoners in high school, not actual friends. You make excellent points about that. Yeah. And it's one of those things that happens when you leave high school is you realize that like a lot of people you were friends with because you were fellow prisoners and you needed each other on some level, and not because you really had a whole lot in common or your goals were mutual or you even liked each other necessarily. So there was lots of people that I hung out with in high school that I just really never bothered to contact after high school because I realized that like I just didn't have anything in common with them. I didn't have common values. Even if I liked them, like the things that they would want to do, very quickly, like we separated out where it's like, I'm working and trying to make something of myself and they're like goofing off and smoking pot. And I just don't have a lot to do there. You know what I mean? And I did want to have some action here, so I'm going to make a note. Might add a fight in here. Because this entire chapter is really got no action in it. It's just kind of talking and setting stuff up. So in some cases, it's good to add like a little action scene somewhere in there, right? Like some kind of tension, right? Hiding from somebody or like having to fight somebody, right? So I might really want to add that in. Like, to be honest about like the fellow prisoner thing too, I also kind of learned something similar with university friends, which was that they were friends for a reason and a season, but not necessarily friends for life, because same idea. They didn't necessarily share your values, but you were both doing things that were similar as far as goals, and you were around each other a lot. But you kind of realized that like either they didn't like you or you didn't like them that much, and there wasn't necessarily that much there. It's a hard thing to think about as you get older, but it's something that, you know, you do need to deal with as you get older. Is like just how friendships can decay and how people change, and how people can like seethe about you in ways that you're not aware of until a lot later. They're upset at you about things that you never knew about or you didn't do, or, you know, there's so many dumb things. In a lot of cases, it's just that out of sight, out of mind. If you're not around them, they're not thinking of you. That's why Facebook is such a weird thing, because it keeps people, like, if you're a friend on Facebook, they'll see you kind of every once in a while because you'll make a post, but they don't really think about you at all, right? They don't really have any kind of warm thoughts about you unless you're right in front of them. That's just the way a lot of people are. It's a really typical thing. It's not that they're evil for that. You know, they're not evil for that. That's just the way a lot of people are. All right. Let's write a couple of scene notes here. How do you feel about slasher movies? Are there something that interests you? I haven't watched one in many years. That's not true. I watched Nightmare on Elm Street in 2024 again, so I might do a little content on that. I'm not big into slasher movies. The sort of jump scare stuff, and especially is how they developed, right? Like Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween. These were movies that created a new paradigm, that those copies really focused on the things that I didn't find as enjoyable about the movies. I thought Nightmare on Elm Street, the best parts about it were really the mystery, uncovering the mystery, and the sort of scary idea of you can't fall asleep, right? That kind of thing. Video pause. Continue watching, yes. So like that setup was so good, and the the build up and the mystery, that tension was so good. But a lot of the follow-up movies just don't have that. You're not uncovering a mystery. You are just avoiding a killer in a lot of cases. And it just, the focus tends to be more on the violence than on the, on the mystery. And the other problem with Nightmare on Elm Street, like with the sequels, is that there's not that much else to do. You're just kind of doing the same movie again. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is just, it really is Nightmare on Elm Street again, So It's okay. Like, I'm not against slasher movies. Some people like them. You know, I've watched them. I feel like the older ones are better and more effective than the newer ones, personally. And I don't know if you would consider Saw a slasher movie, or I just kind of call it gore porn. It's like gore horror, and I like the first Saw movie as well. I think it's really good. But then you have Human Centipede, which is just like another level of it's about being gross and disgusting, and the horror is all in how it looks and the gross ideas, and not so much in kind of brooding tension, right? It's not an Alfred Hitchcock movie. It's like there is no horror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it. I think a lot of newer movies forget that. That's my opinion. Yeah, we didn't really need the origins of Freddy Krueger. Like, the origins of Freddy Krueger in the first one were like, he was just a bad guy, and there's bad people everywhere. So, like, you know, you have to come up with more and more things for backstory, too, as you go. So, like, yeah, 6 movies in, we find out something else about him. I don't even remember what it is, because it's been so long since I saw those movies. But, you know, you're just milking what you set up with the first one at that point. Like, I felt like we didn't need any of that stuff. Yeah. And I like the first Saw movie, though. You know, the first Saw movie I think thought was really effective. And it had a long, slow brooding tension with the, like, Carrie Elwes and the chain and the hacksaw, you know? Like, that was really good. I thought they did a really good job with that. George says, exactly, there needs to be no animosity behind detachment after a certain age. People eventually just have so much more of their own yard to keep in order to come into contact with older, irrelevant agendas. Yeah, you know, it's real. The other thing is, like, I physically moved away from where I went to high school. So, and I haven't been back, you know? So, like, what am I supposed to do? I used to drive through that town sometimes, but for me to stop and see a friend, I lose 2 hours in what is often a very stressful travel situation where I have children with me. So I just never stopped there. So my friends, I have bred some resentment with some friends who, they never came and visited me. It's not like they came up to visit me ever. You know, it's fine. But I didn't stop to see them on the way, even though I was driving back and forth. What am I supposed to do? I don't always have the ability to stop and deal with babies, you know? Where would you put Jason? I don't really remember that much about the Jason movies. The Friday the 13th movies, I don't really remember that much about them. It's been so long since I've seen them. I remember the first one. I felt like they were missing something. I think the setup for, like, you can't fall asleep because of dreams, that to me is a really potently good setup. But that's just a good setup. That doesn't make Freddy Krueger himself scarier than Jason. I haven't seen the newest Saw. I only saw Saw 1 and 2. They made 3 Human Centipede movies, they have there's like meta layers to the Human Centipede movies. I don't know if you guys have seen these. They're gross and stupid, but like Human Centipede 2 is like somebody watches, I think it's Human Centipede 2. Human Centipede 2 is somebody watches Human Centipede 1 and decides to do a Human Centipede. That's Human Centipede 2. And Human Centipede 3 has like an extra meta layer on top of that. Like, they're hiring the filmmaker who made the Human Centipede movies to direct making Human Centipedes at a prison, I think. And it's like it gets increasingly absurd and meta as you go on with the series. And I appreciate that, but I don't think they're great movies to watch. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, the Friday the 13th movies really were like, Friday the 13th 2 was Friday the 13th. Again. And you know what? The Halloween movies were all originally like supposed to be an anthology series. Like, each Halloween movie was just going to be a different story. But they went back with Mike Myers, right? Saw about a third of them as teenagers, never liked them. Yeah, I don't really remember them. They're like really forgettable movies to me. Now that I'm thinking about it. I remember they did a crossover, like Freddy versus Jason. They did like a Freddy versus Jason movie back in the 90s, I think. They just kept doing them, right? It's like milking the 80s franchises. The horror movies really did it a lot faster than the other movies. You know what was a horror series that really went to crazy places was Evil Dead. Evil Dead 1 was kind of straight horror. Evil Dead 2 had a lot of comedy, and Evil Dead 3 was like a fantasy movie. It was Army of Darkness, you know? It was like a comedy fantasy movie. They did weird stuff with that series. I really appreciate that each movie is very different from the others. All right. What's 5 was an imposter Jason. 6 through 9 were zombie Jason. I remember him being like chained to the bottom of the lake in one of them, and that was the way that they defeated him. Was like his zombie self was chained to the bottom of the lake. Oh, I forgot I have Cretan here. What was I going to do with him? Yeah. Yeah, we need Jory. Yeah. Roderick, that's right. That chapter 26. See, this is the kind of outlining work I do, by the way. I'll do light outlining, and then if I want to know, okay, I'm going to get a little more specific. It's just a sequence of events. It's almost just a summary. This happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, and I just fill it in as I feel like it, you know, with whatever emotions I feel like at the time, and that's how I write, you know. I'm not sure if I want to reveal this or if I want to write this live and not tell you guys what happens. Was Freddy's glove in Evil Dead 2? That's interesting. Oh, the 74 Texas Chainsaw, most blood spilled off screen. Yeah, it's more about the horror of what, like, and this is the same thing with Alien. Like, a lot of the deaths in Alien are off screen, which just kind of leaves you to, like, let your imagination wander and wonder about what, you know, what could have happened. Which I appreciate. You know, I think it's a little better to, like, show the darkness and let the audience imagine what's in it. Let them fill it with their own horrible creature rather than show a gross creature. Of course, in Alien, there's a big payoff when you see the alien because of H.R. Geiger's design is just so weird, you know. Yeah. I always liked that glove. That knife glove was cool. That was like a very, you know, I feel like a good horror movie will have some sort of symbol like that, like the hockey mask or the glove. Like, we see the hockey mask, we think of Friday the 13th, right? We see the glove, we think of Freddy Krueger. I guess the chainsaw, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What's another one? You know, the doll, creepy doll from Child's Play. There's probably some other ones. I'll just show you guys the sausage. No one's watching, right? There's not that many people watching. All right. want to put in quotes here. When making The Evil Dead, Sam Raimi developed 3 rules of horror he believed all good horror movies follow. 1, the innocent must suffer. 2, I've heard these before, by the way. The guilty must pay. 3, you must taste blood to be a man. So, you know, this is a good one. The innocent must suffer. Why does that matter? Well, that's a kind of conflict that we really care about. It's kind of like kick the dog. We really want injustices to be fixed. It's really important that injustices are fixed. So when we see injustice happening, one of the first things that we want is to fix that. That's a thing that has to be fixed. And so it creates a lot of tension. It's not just the guilty who suffer, it's the innocent, because we don't care about evil people having bad things done to them. We care about good people having bad things done to them, because that's injustice, right? The guilty must pay is the flip side, which is you fix the injustice by making the guilty die, right? We get some good feelings about the guilty paying, and then taste blood to be a man is mostly about like the growth of the character. The character has to do righteous violence, right? He has to embrace the danger. He has to overcome the fear in order to solve the problem of the movie. And so good horror will have those things. But I don't believe all horror needs those, right? Because classic horror really operates a little bit differently from that. That's good story writing advice, for sure. But does Lovecraft do that? Lovecraft does not do that. Does Edgar Allan Poe do that? Edgar Allan Poe does not do that. So if we're looking at older, does Bram Stoker do that? I think he does to a certain extent, right? The innocent suffer, the guilty must pay, and then you must taste blood to be a man. All the characters have to kind of, I mean, they're all already men, but they have to really take a lot of risks and become stronger and better in order to help Mina Harker. I like Bartholomew. It's a good name. I had a friend named Balthazar. That's a good name. Balt. He's a great guy. All right, so that's all of our big, kind of sketch out all of our big stuff that's going to happen. That'll be, a solid 2 chapters. So we're looking at, and then, chapter 27 will be the, all right. Hi there, came from a string tension video. What's up? I'm writing a novel in this one. I'm not playing guitar right now. But I do plenty of that. Let me link the music channel. I have a whole channel that's just music. No talkie-talkie. No talkie-talkie. There's that. It's all live music. And you can buy the albums. That's what we're hearing right now. We're hearing me play live. I mean, not live, but like a live recording of a previous moment in time in which I was performing and not just recording into like a track at a time into a DAW. It's all live music. Solo live music. So you can figure out how I do that. I have some videos on how I create my crazy music live. Approaching 100 improvisations. 100. That is a big number. So I'm trying to plan something big for number 100. I'm trying to think as big as possible. It'll probably take me a couple days and a couple attempts to like pull off a live performance that is what I have in mind, which is basically to take some of the Steve Reich influenced stuff that I do and just be more extreme with it. So I've toyed with creating chord progressions that'll go through every key, but you'll never notice the transition. The whole point, and people don't realize this with the way I use chords, is like I've explained this before, is like I will layer chords so that you layer two chords, they sound as a third different chord. You take one away and you layer a different chord that creates a different third chord, and you keep doing that on down. I've changed, so if you've listened to the piece Rain, I go through 3 keys in Rain. So like the big idea would be to go through 12 keys, or let's say, and you know, I could scale it down and do like major and minor keys. Like if we did like live, well-tuned clavier of this kind of weird ambient music, it would be like a 6-hour piece. Like it'd be exhausting to try to do something that long, and to structure it right with the correct kind of chords and things like that. So maybe I'll do that, like some major minor chords, like really go through a crazy cycle of chords. We're really doing a lot of different wild chords, and there's a slow transition between keys, between all the different keys. So we get through a whole bunch of keys. Like my original idea was 12. So you can do 12 minor keys. You can do a lot with minor keys because you have that 7th and 6th you can play around with a lot. So you can create some really interesting substitute chords without getting out too far out of the key. And, you know, that's the plan for number 100. I think I'm on 95 or 96 right now. And the other plan was to really use a lot more instruments as well. So usually I'm using a synth and a guitar. I'll use my EWI. So I'm going to do an all EWI piece as soon as I find it convenient to be able to do that. So we'll do an all EWI piece. Electronic wind instrument, which is another instrument I play. And then we'll do one that mixes a couple of those. So I think for like the big one, it's going to probably be like, if I want to be serious, it's probably 8-string guitar, because I can cover a huge range with that without having to do any transposition. That's the big thing, right? Or I could do several guitars that are in different tunings, and just kind of like, while the synth is playing a loop, switch out the guitar, you know, do that kind of thing. So there's a lot of options there. I don't know. I'm still playing around with what I would want to do. He went to a random video that I didn't want. It's okay. Someone else's weird music. Let's see what we haven't had here. This is a good one. Snow. Some synth stuff here. Pure synth. I'll do some that are just synth. Some that are guitar. All right. I'm getting thirsty. I might take a short break and just get something to drink. So I'll be right back. Here, you can check this out. This is kind of fun. I'll just disappear for a bit. just doing this whole thing on the push. All right. Okay, we got about 27 more minutes here. We'll do what we can. Okay. Here we are. So thirsty. I know it seems contrary to its purpose, but do you think religion should be gate kept? I sometimes feel allowing just anyone in allows bad people to hurt the religion. Well, that's the thing, is that traditional religion does gatekeep, right? Traditional Christianity does, Islam does, Buddhism does, right? That is to say, you don't start off as like a full member of the community, right? You start off as a catechumen, and then you get deeper in from there. It's not like a cult thing where you have to pay money to get to level 2, right? But you, in order to join, for example, the Catholic or the Orthodox Church, you become a catechumen. You become a learner, basically. And then there's a ceremony that'll let you join, join the church formally, in which case you have full membership. But you're not an elder at that point, right? You're not a priest. You become, I think it maybe like evangelicals have an issue with this because it's a lot more fluid. Like they don't have these kind of formal settings. But I think there's a lot of gatekeeping in most traditional religions. Jehovah's Witnesses even gatekeep, right? You have to go through different layers before you're like really full part of the community. And that's for good reason. There's even a part, if you are ever listening to like a Byzantine liturgy, there's a shout of like, the doors. What is that? Right? People are like, what are you talking about, the doors? This is a holdover from the early church where you would check the doors to make sure there was no enemies present, that everybody who was there is a full member. Now, in really traditional Orthodox assemblies, and I guess Eastern Catholic too, but I haven't seen this at an Eastern Catholic church. I actually haven't seen it at an Orthodox church either, but like technically there are ones that still do this, is that if you are not, if you're not confirmed, like if you're not, if you haven't been received into the church, you have to leave after the doors part. You have to leave before they do communion, because that's the real body and blood of Christ. You're in the actual presence of Christ. So non-believers who could profane the Eucharist or profane, the sacredness of that moment, or not show proper reverence, they have to leave. And you're also revealing a secret, right? There's a cultic level to that, which is that the secret is this is truly Christ's body and truly his blood. And you are going to eat his flesh and his blood. Truly. So the like secret power of the Eucharist, this would be a very big deal. You have to think during Roman times, because it would basically be saying that you're being a cannibal of God. You're cannibalizing a God. And this would be looked at as extremely weird or even profane, right? Like evil. So that's what that reference is to, the doors. It's to kick people out. People who are not part of the church, they have to leave after, there might be a litany. You'll have some different parts of a mass. You might have a sermon or a homily. Then the kids, the non-members, have to leave. They got to go. You don't get to witness the Eucharist. So, yeah. I don't think it's contrary to its purpose. What's the purpose of religion? You have to ask, what's the purpose of religion? Well, different religions have different purposes. And the purpose of a religion may be different than the purpose of the people who are in the religion and the individuals who are taking up that religion. People who are trying to become Buddhists are trying to gain enlightenment, and they're going to do it through whatever path or means that their gurus are going to tell them about. Right? It's a kind of a Christian perspective to think that there's a purpose to the religion that is directed towards people, like to get as many people into the religion as possible. Other religions don't have that. A lot of other religions don't have this idea like we need to proselytize as many people as possible. No, it's about the cult to that god, right? Especially locally, like the local gods of India or Africa or wherever, right? They don't think like that. Confucianists don't think that like that. Shinto's people who practice Shinto certainly don't think like that. That there needs to be some sort of bringing of people into the religion. No, it's about doing the rites for the kami, doing the rites for the gods, and that's what it's about. It's a little different. But yeah, traditional Christianity does gatekeep quite a bit. It really does. Okay. Let's write a little bit before we go here. All right. What do you think caused the bar to be lowered so far, at least in America? Baby boomers. Okay. I am the guy who rants about baby boomers now. But in all seriousness, what happened is baby boomers are the me generation, right? They're the me generation. If you want one idea that encapsulates the baby boomers is that life is directed towards the self. Doesn't mean that millennials aren't selfish too. It just means the baby boomers, that was like one of their defining things. So what baby boomers did in mass is they abandoned their traditional religions and they joined various evangelical sects in the United States. So they stopped being Methodist and they became Baptist, or they stopped being Methodist and they became evangelical free. They stopped being Anglican and they became something else. They stopped, so they stopped being mainline Protestants and they became me evangelicals, right? And I'm not trying to throw a lot of shade at evangelicals, but how often have you heard someone say, how's your personal relationship with Christ? It's about me. How are you in Christ doing? How am I in Christ doing? What is me, right? So because it's all about me, the next step for like the boomer transition is just, why shouldn't I be pastor? Why shouldn't I be in charge of the church as well? Why shouldn't I be a deacon? I should be an elder too, because, the philosophy of Anabaptism as expressed in the modern era in like the Jesus movement, the evangelical movement post 1970. It's very much about what you do as an individual and the personal charism and stuff like that. So that's just what happened. Is it became a thing where the seeker-sensitive churches developed out of that mindset where it's all about capturing people in. It's attracting people in by giving them things that they want, right? Entertaining them. It's very common for mega churches to have things like gyms on campus, or daycares, or any number of things that they do. And those things exist, those amenities exist for members so that you get more people to be members. It's the opposite of gatekeeping, right? It's throwing the gates open and trying to get as many people in. Well, shouldn't we try to get as many people into the gates of heaven as possible? Well, from a more traditional perspective, it's not that simple, right? It's not as simple as inviting someone into heaven. People, in order for them to get to heaven, they have to do certain things. And they have to believe certain things. Walking through the door because they like the people or they like the music is not enough to get them to heaven. So, you know, traditionally we understood this, that like the process of salvation is not this, you know, throw open the gates and let everyone come in. So get them all in and let God sort them out. Well, the problem with that is that people need a lot more than entertaining music after a while. You know, that's my complaint about that. You know, exactly. We see those who are left after the Christ has risen. Indeed, he has risen, and stay for the Mavrodaphne and bread communion after midnight brings Easter Day. Ah, yes. You know, this is a thing I noticed. I've noticed in Eastern churches, because they tend to have they have a strong ethnic community, and that's part of it, is that people will come late, get communion, and then leave. That's really common. And I thought that was weird, because I was like, shouldn't we stay for the coffee hour, right? Like, shouldn't we stay to have more things? Like, shouldn't we say all the prayers afterwards? Like, but versus, it's just a different mindset versus the people who come for they come for the prayer service in the hour before the liturgy or the mass, and then they stay through the mass, and then they stay afterwards to continue learning and talking and community building. Versus people who are like, they're already part of the community, they're part of the ethnic community that's associated with that church, and then they just kind of get communion and leave. Is that degrading to communion? I don't know, because I don't know where they are, right? I don't know if they had some serious sin that they needed to confess and they didn't do that, and then they received communion, which is to invite damnation on you. You know, I don't know where they're doing it, but you know, I see that a lot. The actual pure Anglican Church of Britain has far less than even one half the Orthodox Church. Well, the other thing about Orthodox Church, you know, if we're talking about the Orthodox Church in America, there's actually a bunch of them, because they are all planted by ethnic groups. So, you know, a group of Greeks have a Greek Orthodox church. And we think of it as Greek Orthodox, right? Oh, it's Greek Orthodox. Everyone there is Greek. They do this. They do the liturgy in Greek. It's Greek. It's very, very Greek. Well, it doesn't really grow because it's mostly there for Greeks. And people who aren't Greek, they can come. Like, you know, there's no one stops you from coming in and seeing a Greek Orthodox church service. It's pretty cool, and I recommend that people go to a divine liturgy sometime if you've never been to one. It's a very cool thing to visit, even if you're not ever thinking of orthodoxy, right? But it's pretty rare that they have like more than one liturgy, or like there's a lot of them around. They tend to be kind of focused with the ethnicity, and then the one down the road might be Russian Orthodox, and so we have them like here in where I live, north of Houston, where there's a Russian Orthodox church really close to an Antiochian Orthodox church. They're really close together. In fact, the guy who's at the Russian Orthodox church has like a lot of Twitter followers, and writes a lot of articles online. I'm trying to remember his name. It's running away from me right now. But anyway, those priests are under different bishops, under different archbishops, under different patriarchs. So even though they're both in the Orthodox area, their organizational system is like completely divorced one from another. So they really aren't under the same authority at all. And so it's just this weird thing that happens because one of them is Rokor, Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia. One of them is Antiochian. There's another one down the road from them that's Greek Orthodox. Meanwhile, the Catholic churches are all just Catholic. Like you kind of get all the Catholic churches have the same bishop in the same area. And if you want to think about the number of people, like you put all the Orthodox churches together, you have, I think there's 3 kind of near me. So that's 3 services on Sunday. And they'll be packed. They'll definitely be packed because I've been to them. But the Catholic churches will have 3 per campus per Sunday, plus matins, plus an evening service. And there's like 6 of them. So the number of people that are Catholic is like gigantic compared to the number of Orthodox here. And it's the same thing with Anglican. There's an Anglican church. It has 3 services. The Lutheran church right next to it has 3 services. There's just a lot more people going to those other forms, And it's nothing to say anything bad about the Orthodox church, but that's kind of where it is in America. I don't know where it is outside. Like if you live in Greece, obviously you're going to have a different perspective on the Greek Orthodox Church than me, who has a Greek Orthodox church near me full of Greeks that they're great. Like I love hanging out with Greeks. So I love Greek people. But that's the church is there and it's in Greek. Oh, sorry. Let me look at the chat because you guys are saying some really interesting stuff. Pink Floyd style. Everyone says Pink Floyd style for my music, and I really appreciate that. It wasn't what I intended. But I've listened to so much Pink Floyd over my life, it just kind of gets pulled in, especially the way David Gilmour approaches guitar tone and things. I have a David Gilmour setup on one of my guitars to get all those different crazy tones that he gets. He thinks a lot about the sound of the guitar, and he thinks a lot about the melody and the line that he's playing, more than trying to be like a technical wizard. It's all about the music. It's very pure. But he is technically a very good guitar player as well. That's what's cool about David Gilmour. I mean, many things are cool about him. Yeah. Do you think that caused the bar to be lowered so far, at least in America, is the boomers? Yes. Sam Raimi is now working on a new movie called Send Help, starring Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams. It's been described as a cross between Misery and Castaway. Ooh, that sounds cool. I like Sam Raimi movies. See, I liked Darkman. I feel like I'm the only fan in the world of Darkman. But it's a cool movie. They abandoned pretty much everything except hedonism. I guess you're talking about baby boomers, then blamed everyone else. I just hope Sam Raimi puts the Oldsmobile in the movie somewhere. It all comes back to the boomers. I hate to blame the boomers, but the big boomer movement was to leave all of these traditional churches and then form new churches that are kind of about me. They're about the people who attend it. And so the seeker-sensitive movement just kind of grows out of that, in my opinion. Sort of that just taken to the next level. We have 3 in town and they're all different types. I guess you're talking about Orthodox churches. It's very interesting, Yes, many do not even stay for the communion after the risen fireworks and celebration. Never mind staying for the eggs and cheese and gather with relatives and friends for post-fast feasting. Yeah, that's the other thing about coffee hour. So traditionally, a lot of people don't do this. You'll go to confession like on a Saturday night and you'll fast all the way until lunch the next day, basically. And so the first thing you'll eat on that empty stomach is communion. And so Eastern churches do communion a little bit different from Catholic churches. If you're familiar with Catholic churches, they'll do usually, there's some that do both kinds, but mostly it's communion in one kind, which is a wafer, right? But the Orthodox churches will do bread, and a lot of times they break the bread up and they put it in the wine, and so you're getting the bread and the wine mixed together out of like a spoon. So that's the first thing that you eat on that fast is like this pure, the body and blood of Christ. Then afterwards, everybody there's like a big potluck. Everybody's got some food. You hang out, you eat the food, and talk with people, and make, it's really important for that community. Like the coffee hour is really important for those churches because they need it, right? They really need that. People really need that time to bond. Yeah. I like Darkman 2. Very good movie. Although the Autocephalous Church in Constantinople is from where the holy light of Easter is brought from by plane to the other branches, even my relatives in New England. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. Yeah. The Italian mafia tended to have a connection to Catholicism. One mafia family even had members take oaths with pictures of Catholic saints. How could they reconcile that with their lifestyle? You'll have to ask them that. But you can also do some reading about, the politicking in Rome in the mid 16th century or the early 16th century, thereabouts. It's really interesting stuff. Yeah, Godfather Part 3. I haven't seen Godfather Part 3 in a long time, but I think it gets a little bit unfairly maligned. It's pretty good, not as bad as it's made out to be. I think anytime you have something that's like exceptionally high quality, that's the standard. You want everything to meet that standard, and if it doesn't, then it's gonna suck by comparison. You know, I think if Godfather 3 were like a different movie with different characters, or you know, the same story but like not attached to the other movies, I think we'd view it a little bit differently. Believe it or not. I didn't think it was a bad movie. Oh my gosh, what's the name of the capital city? Spisaria. I have read Jurassic Park. I have read the book. If so, do you prefer it to the movie? I like the movie. I mean, I like the book more than the movie. There's a lot of things in the book, but I haven't read it since I was a teenager. So it's been, for me, more than 20 years since I've read the book, and I don't remember everything about it. But I remember liking the book a lot more than the movie because there was more in it. There were more details. There were more interesting things going on. I like the little chaos theory things with the chapters. Lots of fun ideas about how basically randomness will create, these conditions that you hope to control will arise because of chance. It's a really interesting idea. It's like you can't control everything. So it's good. And I like the characters in the book more than the movie in a lot of ways. We don't get enough screen time for what's his name? Oh my gosh, I remember his name. The guy who's like the hunter. You get a lot more of him in the book, and it's better in a lot of ways. I think it's a great book from what I remember. I haven't read it in years, but I do like it. I like Michael Crichton's writing in general. I think he's a great writer. I like Eaters of the Dead. I like Timeline. I like Jurassic Park. I don't remember Lost World. I don't remember the Lost World book. That might be worth looking at again. I liked Sphere a lot. Sphere was a really cool sci-fi book, and I really enjoyed that. The Hot Zone. I believe that was him, right? Hot Zone? What else did he do? So he did the Hot Zone. Congo? Congo was cool. I remember Congo. Yeah. Not Alan Grant. Muldoon. That's the one I'm thinking of. He's a lot better in the book. Yeah, Congo was interesting. There's another one I'm thinking of that I've read. I've read a number of his books. Timeline is the one where they're going back to like medieval... Oh, State of Fear. State of Fear is about eco-terrorism. It's really good. And it was way ahead of its time. Yeah. Timeline's where they're like going back to the medieval thing and they're time traveling. It's good. Timeline's good. Spielberg's great, but I remember not being able to step down on the ocean surrounding my bed while reading Jaws. Yeah. Andromeda Strain, is that it? Andromeda Strain... Wow, he wrote this in 1969. Yes, this is it. Like an alien virus, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Andromeda Strain's what I'm thinking of. That was a cool one. Definitely cool. Crichton directed the movie. I know he created ER. Didn't he create ER? He created the ER show. He's a doctor himself. I can't believe it. He's been gone so long. Michael Crichton. I can't believe he died in 2008. It didn't feel that long ago. I didn't realize he directed the movie too. Prey, that's another one. Yeah. State of Fear. Yep. Oh, sorry, I was just nostalging about Michael Crichton. Yeah. A few months ago, Kursova was saying on Twitter that Jurassic World was closer to the spirit of Crichton's Jurassic Park than Spielberg's movie because the book was more high octane. Well, the book has a lot of thinking in it too, and I think Spielberg's movie is a good adaptation. There's always going to be debates about that. I think it's a pretty good adaptation of the book, but I can also see like the book has a lot of action in it. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of talking too, a lot of ideas, but a lot of action as well. And it kind of unfolds like a mystery. It's really well done in general. So I think it's a great book to read. If you haven't read it, it's a good place to start with Crichton's books. My favorites are probably Sphere. Now I like Timeline just because I think it's a great action medieval kind of thing. So I like Timeline a lot just because of its execution qualities. I think the premise is not actually that interesting in Timeline, but I think the execution is super well done. And I think Jurassic Park is a good place to start. I like Sphere a lot as well. So those are probably my three favorites that I like. State of Fear, I remember liking, but I just don't remember a lot of details about the story. So, yeah. Strange that they're apparently making a 4th Jurassic World movie, 7th Jurassic Park movie total. Didn't know there was that much interest to sustain the franchise. Dinosaurs are cool, man. That's why dinosaurs are cool. That's why we got it. Anyway, I realize I'm over time now, so I need to get going here. We got started on this. I didn't write that much today, believe it or not. I spent more time talking, but that's fine. I love talking to people. And we did outline the rest of the book, so now we just get to execute it. So I might do some random streams if I feel like writing, get this thing finished, pushed out, get to the revision phase where I could show you guys how I'll revise and add a bunch of things to this, and then get this book published. But it's going to come out after King Leper. I might make it 4th in the Eternal Dream series. Then I don't know what we'll do after that. I'll have the next 3 Moonsong books. Number 4, I mean, number 4 and 5 are already written. 6 still has to be written, but 5 needs to be revised. I wrote it a long time ago and it needs a revision. So I need to revise Moonsong 5 and then write Moonsong 6. And that will be like a big point where I can maybe rest on my laurels and do another project. I feel like I'm so behind on so many book projects, but the market is so bad for books. Like it's been terrible the last couple of years. And, it's just hard to keep doing that when it's so hard to make money in the literary world. It used to be easy, not easy. It was still a lot of hard work, but now it's like, you have to just do so many different things now. It's hard, but I'll have a crowdfund for King Leper to kind of pay for a signed print run for people that care about that. And then we'll publish this one, Prince of Twilight. Book 5, I'm not sure what I'll do for book 5. I have 2 kind of stories in mind for after this that are pretty cool, in my opinion. Yeah, Moonsong, that if I finish book 6, that'll be like basically the conclusion. Like we're at a kind of conclusion at the end of Moonsong 3. We're at a bigger conclusion at the end of Moonsong 6, like a more epic conclusion. And then yeah. The trailer was released today. A Jurassic World trailer. It looks like it could be all right. They're stepping away from how bonkers the last 2 got and going back to basics. Spielberg was very good, but his screenwriters usually change things, as in his Minority Report, reversing the reason why Anderton kills the head of pre-crime. Last few years, book releases are weak. It's really hard to make money in the publishing space right now. Long term, I don't know. Long term, everything is helter-skelter, but I feel, my gut tells me long term, the future of success in the publishing space is going to be physical books. No one wants to believe this because they want to keep selling $3.99 ebooks forever, but we're not going to do that. I think people are tired of ebooks. I think ebooks will still sell They'll still be an option for a lot of people, but I think for volume sales, it's going to be physical books in physical places. Real people live in real world places. So if you have a book on the table at Costco, that is how you are going to sell that book. If you can get a book into Barnes and Noble and get them to put it on a display case, that is how you will sell that book to normal people. Okay, that's still how people buy books, is they see them on the shelf and they buy them. They see it, maybe they've heard about it, they buy it. They might buy it on Amazon if they're a fan of that author. They're still buying the physical books for a great percentage of the time. I realize I need to change the kerning on this cover. The WA, the kerning is off. The AV, it's not correct. See how these line up? They overhang a little bit. They actually need to overhang a little bit more. Both of these need to overhang a little bit more with this font. Yeah, I prefer physical books too. It's a different experience. It's either physical books or audiobooks. I don't do a lot of ebooks. I have ebooks. I will read them on my phone. And what I love is that I always have my phone with me. So an ebook, it's always ready. I can whip open an ebook and read a couple pages of an ebook and think about what's there. But audiobooks are better because I can listen to them while I'm washing dishes. Physical books I like better. They are a better experience, and they allow you to kind of go back and forth sometimes and stop. Like you could just read them in a different way from an ebook. It's harder to navigate an ebook compared to a book. A real book is just, it's a better experience. It's just better, you know. This cover's by Jesse White, a great artist. Let me find him on Twitter so I can find, or on X. So I can point you to some other of his work. There he is. He's a great guy. He was a metal singer. Yeah, here's his. Here's some art he just put up today. All inked by hand. He does all this stuff in the real world. You know, like look at the detail on these faces. Just how awesome the form is. Like this choice of angle. This is a very challenging angle to draw a face in, I feel like, is from below, and like this angle as well, this profile, you know, there's a lot of challenging art in just this one page as far as just the way he's choosing to present these characters, and this two-tone inking here is really good. This is very difficult to accomplish. Notice all the black here. Like his inking is really, really top notch. I think it's like some of the best in the business right now. Like it's way better. This is way better inking than whatever I see coming out of like most comics, like Marvel Comics. He does it with a real brush in the real world, and I think you can see the results of that. I'm trying to see if there's other stuff here. Let's check the media tab. He's got a lot of great stuff. So he did the cover. It's good stuff. Horror Christmas. Very Baroque details here. This is a challenging kind of panel to draw. And to ink correctly, to preserve these details. This one too, with all the black. It's challenging. I don't think he did that one. Here we go. Here's another one of his. Very good stuff. So here, I'll just link his profile. There you go. All right. I think that's it for today, guys. Let me link everything. Let me link Patreon again. Let me link the music if you want to buy the music, including the new least worst of album. And oh yeah, Substack. You can read copies of this if you are a supporter on Patreon or Substack, either one. Newest article is called The Death of Jazz. So it talks about how an art form dies. And it basically becomes like a dead thing rather than a living thing. And that's what that's about. So Anyway, that's it. I will see you guys next time. Have a great, great day. I don't know if I forgot to link anything else. I'll link the Zool channel. Put this on. Enjoy some weird music that I do. So have a great one, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great, great day. This last chapter will be up on all the sites tomorrow or something. So that's what I'll do. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Yeah, I told Jesse, by the way, just because I saw Hardwick's message, Jesse White ought to crowdfund some illustrated editions of classic books. He'd be great for the John Carter books or something. I suggested this to him a couple of years ago, but he's got a lot of work for hire going on right now, as my understanding. He's got a lot of other stuff going. But he totally could crowdfund something if he wanted to show it off here. You know, like here's a Bible story. Wait, here we go. Right. So he could do like an illustrated edition of Dracula, or like you said, John Carter of Mars, or Princess of Mars. That kind of stuff. That would actually be a really good idea. But if that's only if you crowdfund it to the amount that it would pay for all your stuff, right? It would have to be like a $10,000 crowdfund. Do you know what I mean? Or more. We've talked about some of the problems with crowdfunding. A lot of people who crowdfund, they actually lose money on the crowdfund because of lots of little things you don't think about, like shipping, shipping internationally, things like that, can actually eat you up, as well as like, if you're not at the correct volume, printing can be really uneconomical if you're doing a physical product. So a lot of challenges. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Have a great, great day.